Hey everyone, I'm James, and this is Covetous Imp Gaming, and this week we're going to talk about some pre-quests for some pre-written adventures that I've run. If you haven't done so already, please like this video, leave us a comment below about videos you would like to see in the future, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're alerted to when we release our future content, and check us out on Facebook and Patreon. Those links are down below. So, the first pre-quest I want to talk about is the Fall of Elturel by Anthony Joyce and Justice Arman. Now, the Fall of Elturel is a pre-quest for Descent into Avernus. Descent into Avernus gets a real rough rep when it comes to the beginning feeling railroady, things feel out of place, and then you get to Avernus and you're in a wide open sandbox and you can go anywhere, and there's times where you feel like you're not really sure where you should go next. Now, I've run the entire Descent into Avernus before, and I put my own spin on it, but there were times where it felt like the adventure really bogged down into, where should we go from here? And Fall of Elturel really kind of pulls it all together. You need to have your characters feel a connection somehow with Elturel as it gets sucked into Avernus. And at the same time, it does introduce the Cult of the Dead 3, which should make your players at least feel like the Dungeon of the Dead 3 has some purpose. You could very well have a group of morally gray individuals who don't get attached to the couple that's getting married or the little girl that's being attacked by the wolves and the sad thing that happens as they're pulled into Elturel. But it gives your characters another line of connection to the Dungeon of the Dead 3 and makes that feel like it has more of a purpose. And once they get into Avernus and Elturel is suspended above Avernus, slowly descending towards the river Styx, it gives them more of an understanding of that timeline that Elturel is on and the importance of freeing those people, or at least getting those chains broken. The Fall of Elturel is available on the DMsGuild.com, and I will put a link to that down below. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Death House in Curse of Strahd. I love Death House. I think it was a great introduction to Curse of Strahd. It really sets the theme and the setting of just, here's a huge house full of dread for you. And I think that that's important to set the scene of what's going on in the campaign that you're running as you get into it. And it gives your characters a buffer of levels if they're successful. And it's a good way of just getting the characters into the mindset of whatever environment you're putting them in. The second pre-quest I want to talk about is the Cellar of Death by James Introcaso. This is a very different take on giving your players a pre-quest. They are going to go home from your session 0 with a little bit of homework. They will, sit down at your session 0, make their character, start kind of grinding out backstory. But Cellar of Death starts with a funeral for a friend. And the homework that you're going to give them going home from session 0 is to go home and write a eulogy about this character that you come up with that's dead. So as the funeral progresses, they are approached by a member of the Harpers and somebody else who wants to send this group of people that delivered their eulogy about their adventures with this random dead person to track down what is wrong with death itself. And that sets the stage for everything that is going on in Tomb of Annihilation before just dropping them off in Chult and saying, hey, there's something wrong here. Good luck. Cellar of Death is very much a mini Death House. You are faced with a lot of tough choices, and around every corner waits death itself as you bob and weave your way through a basement and try to track down a lich's phylactery. So I did recently run this for my Tomb of Annihilation group, and they loved it. But at the end of session 0, I gave them their homework of writing the eulogy and told them that we were going to run a pre-adventure called Cellar of Death. And the question came up, is this a basement or a vendor? And I refused to tell them, and they spent the next 2 weeks wondering if they were going up against the Merchant of Death or just a basement filled with death. And that is misdirection. Cellar of Death can be found over on the DMsGuild.com, and I will put a link to that down below as well. If you're planning on running either Descent into Avernus or Tomb of Annihilation, I think it's worth checking these out. If for nothing else, it gives your players additional hooks to kind of get into the meat of them, of the importance of what's going on in these overall campaign settings before it's dropped in their lap, and you have to hope that it's not kind of brushed off and not as important as it really is in those moments. That's going to wrap it up for this week. Next week, I'm going to be talking about important notes you need to have about the setting of your homebrew campaign setting. Thanks for watching. We appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next week.